I deserve this after everything I've done for you. My name is Tucker Hayes. I'm 45 years old and spent 22 years behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler. My wife had just cleaned out our bank account while I was unconscious in the hospital, and that text message was her only explanation. I should have felt rage. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. The kind of exhaustion that reaches into your bones and stays there. I stared at that screenshot showing our joint account balance at 0 and sent back a thumbs up emoji. Nothing else. When the doctor asked if someone was picking me up tomorrow, I lied. Yeah, I said. That night, I called my brother Wade. I'm Tucker Hayes, and I've been driving long haul for over 2 decades. Not glamorous work, but it paid well, around $75,000 a year, and I was good at it. Never missed a delivery, never had a major accident. The kind of driver companies could count on. For 15 years, I thought I had a marriage that worked the same way. Reliable, steady, built on trust. I met Brenda at a gas station outside Cheyenne. She was stranded with a flat tire, and I was the guy who stopped to help. Back then, she looked at me like I was some kind of hero for knowing how to use a jack. Funny how the things that impress people at first just become expected later on. What starts as heroic becomes routine, then invisible, then somehow not enough. We got married 6 months after that. Quick, but not reckless. I was 30. She was 27. Old enough to know better. Young enough to believe in something. She never liked that I was gone 3 weeks out of 4, but the money was good, and she liked what it bought. New furniture, vacations to places I'd only seen from interstate rest stops, a house with more rooms than 2 people needed. I'd call every night from whatever state I was passing through. Sometimes those conversations lasted an hour. We'd talk about her job at the insurance office, my routes, plans for when I got home. As the years went on, they got shorter. 5 minutes of updates, then just checking in. Last couple years, it was mostly texts. Made it to Nashville. All good here. Looking back, there were signs. She stopped asking when I'd be home. Started checking her phone under the table during dinner, changing passwords on accounts, moving money between accounts for better interest rates. She took trips with friends I'd never met, but I trusted her. That's what marriage is, right? Trust. 3 months ago, when interest rates dropped, I refinanced our house. Brenda said she was too busy to come to the signing, so I handled it myself. Put it only in my name since my credit score was better, 780 compared to her 640. She never even asked to see the paperwork. I thought I was doing us a favor, getting us a better rate. I had no idea I was giving myself a lifeline. If you enjoy stories about betrayal and how the truth always comes to light, please like this video and subscribe to the channel right now. Every day brings completely new stories, each one more gripping than the last. The chest pains started weeks before that day outside Omaha. Just stress, I told myself. Just the long hours and bad roadside coffee. Until I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was hauling a load of electronics to Denver when the pain hit like a sledgehammer to my chest. Had to pull over on I-80, gasping for air, my left arm going numb. I called 911 myself. They airlifted me to Sioux Falls Regional Medical Center. Turned out I wasn't having a panic attack. My left anterior descending artery was 95% blocked. My heart was shutting down. I remember Dr. Patricia Chen's face before everything went black. "We're losing him," she said to someone behind her. Not exactly what you want to hear right before you pass out. 2 days later, I woke up with an IV in my arm, a cardiac catheter insertion site that ached like hell, and a brand new drug-eluting stent keeping my heart beating. The nurse told me I'd coded twice on the table. Said I was lucky to be alive. I didn't feel lucky when I checked my phone. There was only one message from Brenda. 15 years of marriage, and this was her response to me nearly dying. A screenshot of our joint account balance showing $0, and below it, "I deserve this after everything I've done for you. $61,438.72. Gone. My emergency fund, my truck maintenance account, my retirement cushion. Every dollar I'd saved from 22 years of driving through blizzards, heat waves, and sleepless nights. All of it. I stared at that message for what felt like hours. Then I sent her a thumbs up emoji. Nothing else. What was there to say? When Dr. Chen came in for rounds, she told me I needed to rest, avoid stress, no driving for at least 6 weeks while the stent settled. She asked if someone was picking me up tomorrow. Yeah, I lied. That night, I made a call to my brother Wade. He lived on the other side of town. Hadn't spoken to him in months, not because we were fighting, we just lived different lives. He built things with his hands. I moved things across the country. Need a favor, I said. Name it, he answered without hesitation. Need a place to crash for a few days, and I need you not to tell Brenda. There was a pause. She doesn't know you're alive? Oh, she knows, I said. She just doesn't know I'm not coming home. Wade helped me into his guest room. He's a construction foreman, works locally, divorced twice. Once because his first wife said he worked too much, once because his second wife said he didn't make enough. Knows something about the ways people can disappoint you. You should eat something, he said, setting down a sandwich. I wasn't hungry. I was thinking about that house, about the refinancing I'd done 3 months earlier when Brenda said she was too busy to come to the signing. About the medical power of attorney I'd set up last year after my buddy Tim had his stroke and his girlfriend couldn't make decisions for him. Smart moves that I'd made for practical reasons, not knowing they'd become armor. Does Brenda know you're here? Wade asked, settling into the other chair. No, I said, and we're going to keep it that way for a bit. She took everything? I nodded, taking a bite of the sandwich. It tasted like cardboard, but I forced it down. What are you going to do? I'm going to get some rest. Doctor's orders. But that night I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, remembering all the little moments where Brenda had seemed distant. The way she'd angle her phone screen away from me when texting. How she'd suddenly developed strong opinions about visiting her sister in Minneapolis, trips that happened when I was on long hauls. The new clothes, the different perfume, the way she'd started working late on Tuesdays. I'd been blind, but not anymore. On my third day at Wade's place, I got a text from our neighbor, Kenny Morrison. Haven't seen you around. Everything okay? Brenda's got some guy over. Thought you should know. I sat with that for a long time. Didn't respond. Just let it sink in. Kenny Morrison, the helpful neighbor who'd fixed our fence last spring, who'd always been so concerned about our property when I was away. Always so helpful. But what Tucker didn't know was that Kenny's helpfulness went much deeper than anyone realized. Later that afternoon, I drove with Wade to the bank. Not our regular branch where Brenda and I were known, but the main office downtown. Asked to speak with a fraud specialist. I showed them the text message with the screenshot, explained I'd been hospitalized, unconscious, that the withdrawals happened without my knowledge or consent while I was coding on an operating table. The woman behind the desk, Sandra Williams, according to her nameplate, kept her face neutral, professional, but I could see it in her eyes. Pity maybe, a little anger on my behalf. Mr. Hayes, we can start a fraud investigation, but given that it's a joint account and your wife has equal access, it may be difficult. I understand, I cut in, but I'd like to try anyway. I have medical records showing I was incapacitated. She nodded, started typing. We'll need records from the hospital confirming your stay, particularly documentation of when you were unconscious or incapacitated. Not a problem, I can get those. And you should know, if this becomes a criminal matter, the police will get involved. I looked at her. I'm aware. On the way back to Wade's, we stopped for gas. I stayed in the car while he pumped, watching through the windshield as a father with 2 kids bought ice cream from the convenience store. The kids were laughing, sticky-fingered, and happy. Normal life going on all around me while mine had imploded. Want anything? Wade asked. I shook my head. Back at his place, I made 3 phone calls. First to my dispatcher, Jim Rodriguez, telling him I needed extended medical leave. 22 years with the company bought me some patience. Second to the credit union, where I kept a small business account for my independent contracting jobs. Third to Mitchell Shaw, a lawyer friend of Wade's who specialized in family law. I need to know where I stand, I explained. With the house, with the accounts, with everything. Mitchell agreed to meet the next day. I hung up and pulled out my laptop, logged into accounts Brenda didn't know existed. My disability insurance, 60% of my salary for up to 12 months if I couldn't drive. A small investment account I'd started years ago. Not because I was hiding anything from her, but because she'd never shown interest in the boring parts of our finances. Handle the money stuff, she'd always said. I trust you. While I was doing that, another text came through from Brenda. Where are you? Your truck isn't at the depot. Did they tell you I came by? I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, Tucker, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. We need to talk about this. I set the phone face down on the table, screen against the wood. Wade looked over from the kitchen where he was making coffee. She reaching out? Yeah. You going to respond? I closed my laptop. Not yet. That night, I called my niece Paige. She was Wade's daughter from his first marriage, a law student at USD and sharp as a tack. Smart kid with access to resources I needed and the kind of digital native skills that came naturally to her generation. I need your help with something, I said. What kind of help, Uncle Tucker? The kind that involves financial records and a wife who thinks she's smarter than she is. 2 days later, Paige called with news that changed everything. Uncle Tucker, I found something. Brenda has another account. First Dakota Credit Union downtown. I sat down hard. How much? $127,345. The number hit me like a physical blow. How long has she had it? Opened 18 months ago. Regular deposits, always just under $10,000, just under the federal reporting threshold. Classic sign of someone systematically hiding money. There's more, Paige said, and I could hear papers rustling on her end. The deposits align perfectly with your long-haul schedule. When you're gone, money goes in. When you're home, nothing. My hands were shaking. Who else has access? Kenny Morrison. He's listed as an authorized user, added to the account 6 months after it opened. Kenny, our helpful neighbor who'd been so concerned about the stranger at my house. The same Kenny who'd installed our new shed last summer, who knew exactly when I'd be away, who had a key to check on things when we went out of town. Paige, I need you to look for something else. Hotel charges, credit card statements, anything with Kenny's name on it. Already did, she said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Hotel charge from the Marriott in Minneapolis 3 months ago. You were in Seattle that week, according to your dispatch logs I pulled. The betrayal wasn't just Brenda. It was coordinated, planned. Kenny playing the concerned neighbor while sleeping with my wife. Brenda draining our accounts while I was fighting for my life on an operating table. I stood up. What's our next move? Mitchell Shaw's face was grim when I met with him the next day. We sat at Wade's kitchen table with papers spread out between us like evidence at a crime scene. The house situation is actually interesting, he said, reviewing the refinancing documents. Since you refinanced solely in your name and included that medical incapacity clause, and given your recent cardiac event, you have a strong legal case for sole possession. What about the money she took? That's trickier. Joint accounts typically mean joint ownership under South Dakota law. But, he tapped a finger on the bank statements. The fact that she cleared it out while you were medically incapacitated could constitute financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Especially since you have documentation that these were primarily your earnings, and she did it while you were literally unconscious from a cardiac event. I nodded, feeling something like hope for the first time in days. And if I want a divorce? South Dakota is an equitable distribution state, but given the circumstances, the secret account, the timing of the withdrawal, the apparent relationship with Morrison, I think we can make a compelling case for an arrangement heavily in your favor. He gathered the papers. I'll draft some initial documents. In the meantime, don't contact her. Don't respond if she reaches out. Everything threw me now. Can you do that? Yeah, I said, I can do that. The next day, Brenda showed up at Wade's house. I was alone, Wade was at work. I heard her car pull up but didn't look out the window. Instead, I sat perfectly still in the living room, like a kid playing hide and seek, barely breathing. The doorbell rang 3 times before she started knocking. I know you're in there, Tucker. Your truck is parked down the street. Her voice was muffled through the door, but I could hear the frustration. You can't just hide. We need to talk about this. I didn't move, didn't even shift my weight on the couch. Outside, I could hear her walking around the house, probably looking in windows. The knocking came again, more insistent. Tucker, this is childish! Come out here! Eventually, the knocking stopped. I thought she'd left until my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I'm sorry about the money. I was angry. You've been distant for months. I thought you were cheating. I found out about the house refinancing and panicked. We can work this out. Please talk to me. It was the first time she'd ever accused me of cheating. Projection, probably. I picked up the phone and turned it face down without replying. The next day, Mitchell called with news that made my stomach drop. Brenda contacted me, he said. She's hired Rita Coleman as her attorney. Rita Coleman, I'd heard that name before. One of the most aggressive divorce attorneys in the state, known for going after everything. Houses, retirement accounts, future earnings. The kind of lawyer you hired when you wanted to take someone to the cleaners. What does that mean for us? It means she's not playing around. Coleman is already claiming that your abandonment after the hospitalization constitutes desertion. She's painting you as unstable, saying you disappeared without explanation and are refusing communication. I let out a long breath. So what now? Now we get ahead of this. I'm filing for an emergency hearing regarding the funds she withdrew. Judge Harmon is presiding. He takes a very dim view of taking advantage of medical situations. That evening I drove past our house. Brenda's Honda was in the driveway alongside Kenny's black Audi. I could see them through the kitchen window, sitting at the table where Brenda and I used to eat dinner when I was home. The same table where she'd served me birthday cake 3 months ago, where she'd kissed me goodbye before my last haul. I circled the block once, then headed back to Wade's. In the driveway, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't know. This is Rita Coleman. I represent Brenda Hayes. Any further surveillance of my client will be documented as harassment. All communication must go through proper legal channels. They were watching me watch them. The gloves were off. Keep watching to see what happens next. 2 weeks later, we had our day in court. Emergency hearing regarding the withdrawn funds. Brenda was there with Rita Coleman, both in sharp suits that probably cost more than I made in a week. I wore the only tie I owned, the one I kept in my truck for unexpected funerals on the road. Judge Harmon was an older man with white hair and reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He reviewed the filings without expression, occasionally looking up at Brenda, then at me. The courtroom was small, intimate. No jury, no gallery. Just us and the truth. "Ms. Coleman," he finally said, "your client withdrew the entirety of the joint accounts while Mr. Hayes was hospitalized for a life-threatening cardiac event. Is that correct?" Coleman stood, her voice confident. "Your Honor, my client had every right to access those joint funds. Furthermore, Mr. Hayes had recently refinanced their marital home solely in his name without Mrs. Hayes's knowledge, which we contend was the first act of financial deception." The judge removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. "I'm not asking about the house right now, counselor. I'm asking about the timing of the withdrawal. Was your client aware that Mr. Hayes was in the hospital when she took the money?" Brenda leaned over and whispered something urgent to Coleman. I watched her face, saw the desperation there for the first time. Coleman cleared her throat. "Yes, Your Honor, but my client was under extreme emotional distress, believing her marriage was ending. She acted to protect herself financially." The judge put his glasses back on. "While unconscious from a heart attack seems an unlikely time for Mr. Hayes to end his marriage." He shuffled some papers. "I'm ordering the funds frozen pending further proceedings. Neither party may access this money until ownership is determined in the divorce settlement." It wasn't a complete win, but it stopped Brenda from spending any more. As we left the courtroom, Brenda tried to approach me. Coleman held her back with a hand on her arm, but not before Brenda said, "Tucker, please. There's so much you don't understand." I walked past without looking at her. Outside, Mitchell was satisfied. "This is just the beginning. Now we start discovery." Discovery. The part where all the cards get laid on the table. But I wasn't done gathering evidence. That weekend, while driving past our house, I noticed something that made my blood run cold, a for sale sign on Kenny's lawn. He was cutting and running. I called Paige immediately. "Kenny cleared out his accounts 2 days ago," she confirmed an hour later. "Nearly $90,000 in cashier's checks. He's liquidating everything." I called Mitchell. "We need to act now. Kenny's selling his house. Brenda might be planning to go with him." Mitchell didn't hesitate. "I'll file for an emergency injunction first thing Monday morning. Freezing all assets, preventing property sales without court approval." Monday morning I woke to a text from Brenda. "We need to talk. Just you and me. No lawyers." I showed it to Wade. "They're desperate," he said, pouring coffee. I nodded. "Good." I forwarded the text to Mitchell, who replied, "Don't respond. Injunction hearing is at 2 p.m. At 1:30, I was walking into the courthouse when I spotted Brenda and Kenny together in the parking lot. They were arguing, their body language tense and desperate. Kenny was gesturing wildly with his hands, Brenda shaking her head. They didn't see me. I took out my phone and recorded them from a distance. 30 seconds of evidence showing their relationship, something they'd been careful to hide from legal proceedings. Kenny grabbing her arm, her pulling away, both of them looking around nervously. Inside, Mitchell was waiting. "Perfect timing," he said when I showed him the video. "Judge Harmon is already in a mood today." Judge Harmon's chambers were smaller than the courtroom. Just the judge, the 2 lawyers, Brenda, and me. Kenny wasn't allowed in. He wasn't party to the divorce. The video of them together played on the judge's computer. No sound, but their body language said everything. The intimacy, the desperation, the fear. "Ms. Coleman," Judge Harmon said when it finished, "would you care to explain why your client has been declaring under oath that she has no relationship with this neighbor when video evidence clearly shows otherwise?" Coleman looked shaken for the first time since I'd met her. "Your Honor, the nature of their relationship isn't relevant to the financial matters at hand. It is when financial fraud is being alleged and there's evidence of conspiracy." The judge turned to Brenda. "Mrs. Hayes, are you planning to leave the state with Mr. Morrison?" Brenda's face went pale. I don't, let me rephrase," the judge continued, his voice getting harder. "The court has evidence that you and Mr. Morrison have been moving substantial sums of money, that Mr. Morrison is selling his property, and that you withdrew funds from joint accounts while your husband was incapacitated. This suggests a pattern of deception and intent to flee." He looked at both lawyers. "I'm issuing an immediate freeze on all assets belonging to both Brenda Hayes and Kenny Morrison. Neither may leave this county without court permission." He turned to me. "Additionally, given Mr. Hayes' medical condition and the evidence of financial exploitation during his incapacity, I'm granting temporary exclusive use of the marital home to Mr. Hayes." Brenda made a small, choked sound. Coleman put a steadying hand on her arm. "Your Honor," Coleman began, but the judge held up a hand. The exploitation of a medically vulnerable spouse is something this court takes very seriously, counselor. You're lucky I'm not recommending criminal charges at this time. Mitchell gathered his papers, trying not to look too satisfied. As we left, Brenda caught my eye. For the first time, I saw real fear there. Not of me, of consequences. 3 months after the hospital, I moved back into our house. My house now. When I walked through the front door with my key, the place smelled different. Cologne that wasn't mine lingered in the air. There were wine bottles in the recycling bin I didn't recognize, 2 wine glasses in the dishwasher. The framed photo from our wedding day was gone from the hallway table. I packed my clothes, my important papers, and the small lockbox from the closet where I kept my birth certificate and passport. As I was loading my truck, I noticed the new shed Kenny had helped build last summer. The fancy landscaping that had mysteriously appeared while I was hauling electronics to California, improvements paid for with my money, installed by my wife's lover. The divorce was finalized faster than anyone expected. Brenda didn't fight after the injunction hearing. Kenny had disappeared the day after the freeze was ordered, leaving her to face everything alone. In the end, Judge Harmon awarded me the house, my truck, and 80% of our savings. Brenda got her car and the remaining 20%. The secret account was split 50-50, but only after she paid my legal fees from her share. I never spoke to her directly again. Everything through lawyers. The last I heard, she'd moved to Minneapolis. Starting over, I guess. I sold the house 6 months later. Too many memories soaked into the walls. Bought a smaller place closer to Wade and Paige, used some of the money to help Paige with law school. She's going to make a hell of an attorney someday. I don't drive long haul anymore. My heart can't take the stress, doctor says. Found work dispatching for the same company. 40 years of loyalty counts for something. Home every night now. It's quieter than the open road, but there's something to be said for stability. Sometimes people ask if I'm angry about what happened. I'm not anymore. You can't control what others do, only how you respond. Brenda thought she was taking everything from me that day in the hospital. Instead, she forced me to fight for myself in a way I never had before. She didn't just take my money, she gave me my freedom. Last week, I was cleaning out some old boxes and found our wedding album. Thought about throwing it away, but didn't. Just put it back in the box. It's part of my story now. Not the end, just a chapter. The heart attack nearly killed me. The betrayal nearly broke me. But I'm still here. Changed, maybe. Stronger, definitely. Some lessons you learn the hard way. Some people you lose for good reason. And sometimes the life you rebuild is better than the one you lost. On clear nights, I sometimes walk around my new neighborhood and look up at the stars. For the first time since the hospital, my chest doesn't hurt. Not physically, anyway. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even hurt. I'm just done. And with that came a clarity I'd never had before. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and leave a comment letting me know what you think about how Tucker handled the situation. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.